Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Over the Bar podcast. As always, we are here to talk some shop about the U.S. lads, be that, in MLS, be that in Europe, be that for the national team. We're here to talk it all. My name is Noah Barnes. As usual, I am your co-host here, and I have with me only one of my beautiful co-hosts here today, Sumesh Amlal. How are we doing, man? It is a great day to be a Nat, as always. But how are you doing specifically, my brother?
I myself am doing well. I personally feel as if Nick jinxed last week, going, "Oh, we got a hot streak here, three people in a row," and jinxed it, and then he couldn't make it. I'm missing Nick today, but otherwise, preseason's looking strong. There's so much to talk about. I feel like there's still so many moves. There's so much happening. Everyone's back. Everyone's happy right now. There's a lot of things happy. Even if you're a little bit upset, there's still like but he's there and something. There's hope. It's not until you get into the season and things don't actually happen and players get injured and whatnot that you get sad, like officially. So I'm very happy right now. Looking forward to the European season and still carrying strong with the MLS season strong. We're about a little bit more than halfway through. So there's still a lot to talk about. What are we, 16 weeks out of the World Cup? I'm getting excited. There's a lot happening right now.
I like that. No, I think that's the theme of today's podcast, and it's that time of the year, like you said, where everybody is just excited. Whether that's a little anxiety, whether it's a little anxiousness for the season to start. I know both from a U.S. perspective and from a club perspective, I just cannot wait for this European season to get going. I'm enjoying MLS while it's lasting, but I need my fix of more Reds, or more Reds and more Nats, more Yanks at top level. I need that kind of ASAP. So I think that's the theme of this podcast is excitement. We're going to talk about some players we're excited for, some U.S. boys we're excited for in Europe, and all that kind of stuff. But I will turn to you first and ask you a little bit about this weekend's MLS action. I was unfortunately pretty wrapped up with work this entire weekend, but so I didn't get to catch much MLS action. But any storylines or beats or anything you wanted to mention?
Yeah, this weekend was a tough weekend in terms of watching for myself, as being on vacation in Chicago this weekend. Would have loved to have seen a Chicago game, but of course they weren't playing at home. But I was able to still catch up on some things. First off, I don't know if you were able to see the New York Red Bulls against Austin game where New York won 4-3. But I just wanted to highlight the Red Bulls went pretty young that game. Daniel Edelman started. Caden Clark was back starting. Serge Gnoma, I believe he is eligible for the U.S. Their right wing. I might have butchered his last name. Got injured but scored and played well. He's like 17, I think now. 2 goals in 7 starts. Obviously, just an interesting team. John Tolkien as well. And then you also give out Aaron Long. Just thought that was very U.S. Eligible and playing team potentially. Was exciting to watch them. Play this weekend and win 4-3 against Austin. Another thing I wanted to say, Jack McGlynn. We've been talking a lot about him, with the US U20s, second straight start for the Union. Get another win there, 1-0. Your guy, though, Aiden Morris, going strong again for Columbus. They did tie 0-0, but against, who was it the Reds? Was it you guys?
Yeah,
I think it was.
I think so. I think it was, and that's the only reason I caught that one. Yeah, no, Aiden Morris, another great game for him. I mean, I think he's unbeaten in the last 9. Columbus, I think, are unbeaten in the last 9, and it's since he started. I'm fairly certain he can fact check me on that one, but at least at some point he had a decent little unbeaten run with Columbus. But yeah, no, he looks a real player. He is kind of somebody who fell off everybody's radar after that. It was an ACL injury, correct?
Yeah.
After that injury, he kind of fell off everybody's radar. But look, I mean, he's a young kid. He's I think eligible for the Olympics, absolutely, and could be somebody who to watch out for over the remaining half of the season. It seems like the Columbus staff are really putting a lot of trust in him. Could be an interesting one, and I'm glad you mentioned Jack McGlynn too, because it seems like Jack McGlynn is somebody who's kind of growing into. We were all kind of waiting to see which of the kind of the 3-man Philly boys would grow into Jim Curtin's system sooner rather than later, and it really seems like McGlynn is taking on that role and really stepping up the first team minutes more so than anybody else, which is great to see from his perspective, and I think Jack McGlynn could be a real player for us in the future too.
Yeah, no shade to Jack McGlynn, but also it's tough. I feel like it's tough for Paxton with Daniel Gazdag there. Such a strong player, and then Brandon Craig with two studs in the center back position who have been amazing for the last 2 years. Really hard for those guys to break through. I think they could on other teams for sure. But to your point about Aiden, yeah, it's been a few strong games here. Nice to see him back from the ACL that got him last year, and to see him strong again. Another guy, ACL injury. I just will say it. Jordan Morris had a goal this weekend. Don't know if you saw that. Scored for Seattle against Colorado. He chipped the keeper. It's kind of nice.
Hey, regardless of what I may think about Jordan Morris for the national team, I'm excited to see any guy scoring in our own domestic league. Look, we have so much like high expectations for MLS and what MLS could be, and I think there's a whole other podcast today, or a whole other podcast on some other day talking about MLS specific and some more MLS centric things. But look, in order for the league to grow, I think a key characteristic has to be our own domestic guys, regardless of how well they perform for the national team, succeeding there. And I'm never going to razz, Jordan Morris or Christian Roldan, Paul Arriola for performing well in MLS. I think it's a great level for them, and I think they should be doing it. And that's so cool for Jordan Morris. Happy for him. That's awesome for him to get on the score sheet. And hey, who knows? Maybe it translates, right?
Yeah, exactly, spot on. Another one I just wanted to mention, just a few more. Pomicall and Ferreira linking up for a goal for FC Dallas. I believe they did draw 1-1, or did they win 1-0? They only scored one goal, but saw this goal. And decent also chip from Ferreira. Just like to see them playing well. Those two guys. Ferreira is one goal off the league lead right now, which is just awesome to see. Crazy to think about. People may question certain aspects of his game and whatnot, and is he the striker? But the guy is every week feels like just getting another goal. So it's really impressive to see. Just that continuing. Another thing, Michael Bradley's back. Did you catch that? Whew. 2 goals this weekend. You had to have seen that. Come on, tell me you saw.
I did. I did see that. It's crazy though. What I think was more crazy about that Toronto storyline is the second Bernadeschi and Insigne come into that team. Why did Toronto all of a sudden look like a brand new team? And we all knew it was going to happen.
Yeah,
we knew it was going to happen. But it was so crazy.
Mark Anthony K comes in. Bob Bradley whips out his magic wand, and bah, this place is going insane. BMO Field.
It is something else, I will say. But that just shows you kind of how crazy MLS is too. That realistically, Toronto's only 13 points off a playoff spot. So
no, not even 13. Aren't they 6? I'm pretty sure they have 22, and Cincinnati or whatever has like 28.
Are they really that close?
Yes, bro.
It must be a while since I looked at the table.
That's not. Yes, bro. I looked at it today. Like they're literally, I'm pretty sure 6 points off. And
we've been razzing on them all year, saying this is not a good team. This is a team that's dead. There's no spark, no inspiration, and there we go. But any other MLS storylines you want to talk about, or anything like that?
Last one was the 2 transfers. Obviously, Shaq Moore going to Nashville, and Nicholas Gioacchini going to Orlando City. Interesting moves here. Obviously, Shaq would have loved to have stayed maybe and gone up to La Liga, with the promotion. But I think Nashville is still a really good team, and people will now be able to maybe appreciate him a little bit more and seeing what he can do here. But it's just a good move for Nashville. And then Gioacchini coming here to prove himself. I think he's at that age, and he's the type of player that he could easily come here, ball out for 2 years, and go back if he's able to do it.
I love that move. I absolutely adore it.
If he's able to do it, then I think he's the total player that could.
It's a win-win for me. It's a win-win for Orlando. It's a win-win for Nico. Mm-hmm. Win-win for the U.S. All these things. It's phenomenal. I was listening to the Tactical Yanks podcast today, and actually Pete Douthit touched on this a little bit, and I have to echo everything he said, and I'll give him full credit for it, but also say I completely agree with the whole thing. That look, Gioacchini is just turned 22. He is still, like you said, at that age where he can come here, jumpstart his career, ball out, and get another shot in Europe. Right? He's not 29. He's not coming here in the tail end of his career. No, he's coming here to potentially restart his career. Or if it doesn't work, if he's not a great player in MLS and is just a decent average player, he's going to have a long career in MLS at the very least, right? And he's going to be getting paid to play soccer. And I think that's perfect for Gioacchini. He's a player that I think right now could really have something to prove. I mean, none of our nines have taken that spot and really grasped it for their own. So to rule out any guy right now, I wouldn't say we could. So any striker playing and scoring, and if that's what Nico ends up doing, I love it.
I will say I'm hopeful, and I think it's already becoming this, and it might even already be this to some. But this move to the MLS, it's not so much as it used to be a total downgrade. Could we compare it to just moving to another league in Europe? And moving from Bundesliga, you're not doing too well. Maybe you move to Eredivisie, build yourself back up. Maybe you move to the Danish league or all these other leagues, not the Danish league, but just, and then build yourself back up. It's comparable is what I hope that it becomes, and maybe it already is. And that's what I see this move as, coming to a league that's comparable, potentially showing your skills and then going back. That's what I hope this league becomes fully. It's just that we're at such a similar level. We might not be Bundesliga, but we might be Eredivisie.
I think it's exactly the same as potentially like somebody or Malik Tillman going to the Scottish league or something like that. Like it's
yes,
but it's a little bit, the only reason that's a little bit different in this case is because Nico's had that top 5 experience. And I think this is a great place for him to come potentially jumpstart his career. And MLS can totally be that. MLS can absolutely be a place where people jumpstart their careers. Again, young players can jumpstart their careers. And MLS, I think, could absolutely be a building block like that in the future, as well as player development, which MLS is already getting better at. Whether that's US player development, which is just to a certain degree, but in general, South American player development has been fantastic in MLS as of late too. So.
Move, bro, a ton. Not to big teams, obviously, and stuff, but just a ton of guys to small level teams all across Europe.
Yeah, it's a great developmental league, and if MLS keeps taking these steps and getting these young, hungry players. Look, another player in MLS that we haven't really even talked about, Cucho Hernandez, just brought in from Watford, who was relegated to the Championship last season. Was a bit part player for Watford, and comes to the MLS and is able to kind of jumpstart his career. He started off hot with 2 goals and 2 assists or something like that. That's the type of player that I think MLS clubs need to start getting more of. These players who may be out of favor in top leagues, can't quite crack it right now at the top level leagues, and maybe need another shot to jumpstart their career. I think that's a phenomenal spot for a lot of these guys to land at MLS. And I really I don't know. I can't speak highly enough of this Nico Gioacchini move. Guys like Matthew Hoppe, I would love to see him potentially follow in those footsteps right now. But I mean, look, that's just a bit of a side tangent. But I think as a point, yes.
One last thing, you mentioned Ohio, so it got me thinking. Didn't Brandon Vasquez score this weekend? I'm pretty sure.
Brandon Vasquez did score this weekend in a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, so just shout out to him. There's some talks and stuff. I'm not saying anything. I'm not giving my opinion on it right now. I'm just giving him credit for the goal and knowing that we see it and that it's impressive that he has this many goals.
Dude, like I said with Jordan Morris, man, whether or not I see you as a national team prospect, American scoring in our domestic league is a plus.
Yes.
It's a plus. And that's, leave it at that for now.
Yeah.
Because I want to get into the crux of our topic today, focusing on excitement. Samara, excitement, anticipation, a little bit of anxiety, but just in general, we've got the club seasons in Europe starting up in probably, I think, a week. Most club seasons start up. Is it this coming weekend or the weekend after?
August 6th weekend.
August 6th weekend, so the weekend after.
Mm-hmm.
It is just getting that time, man. I'm getting itchy. I'm getting anxious. I'm ready to see our Yanks back in action. I don't know about you.
Oh, yeah. Game starts soon, and it's crazy to think about. I'd be fine if Chelsea wanted to push the season a week further. Just push it a little bit. I'm fine with that. But for the Americans and everything else, excited to see what the season has. It starts so soon. Literally 10 days, 9 days, we're back in it. Dortmund plays DFB Pokal on July 30th or something like that. So let's go. I'm excited.
And especially with preseason right now too. I mean, we've been, doing a bunch of preseason coverage. We haven't really talked, I feel like, on this podcast about, how our Yanks have been doing in preseason. But the guys have been relatively successful. I mean, take preseason games with a grain of salt, both from a club level and a national team level. You got to kind of take these preseason games for what they are. But it's nice to see our guys getting minutes, getting that trust by their manager to at least try them out, and relatively taking those opportunities by storm. And there's been a lot of good highlights, a lot of good goals that people have scored. Americans, it feels like, are on the board every day almost that there's a preseason friendly. It feels like an American is scoring, and I love that.
Yeah, with the game, I feel like games are all over the place right now because of the fact that everyone's on preseason. So someone's playing at 2 p.m. in Australia, and another player's playing on a Wednesday night in Charlotte, and it's just like all over the place, which is awesome to see. In fact, every day there's something. There are some interesting storylines when it comes to this preseason. It is like you said, you have the players who are playing really well. You have a lot of players who have reported to camp, and that itself is interesting. But like, what's going to come from that? New moves, players moving to totally new clubs and what's up with them. There's still question marks, obviously. I was, some players that are, not fully back or whatnot, and I just think there's a lot of interesting storylines with this preseason so far.
Give me a couple of years because I've got a couple of just storylines to follow before we maybe talk about some exciting players and guys we're excited to watch for this next season. But in terms of what's been happening in preseason, um, yeah, what do you got for your favorite storylines before I dive in mine, or do you want me to go first? It's up to you.
No, I'll start off with a few of my storylines. One person I've loved seeing. I'll start with this. I just want to start with it is Otasawi, and we've talked about him, but it is really interesting. And one of the storylines about him is just like he might be back. He might be what we claim as he's back from modeling in the spring to playing in the Belgian Cup final. And we talked about it a little bit, I believe, but just excited to see where this goes with him. I think he played again in their in a friendly after or in a match after. So really interesting to see that. But we've seen now both the Leeds guys, Tyler Adams and Brendan Aronson, start playing with Leeds, and that starts real soon in 10 days. So two guys on the same team. I think the Premier League is going to be such a fun watch this season. And hopefully Richards moves too, and Jedi's there. There's been a ton of guys on the score sheet. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Before I dive into the score sheet and who's actually been playing, what do you have in terms of storylines?
No, I was gonna say, I'm glad you mentioned the Leeds guys because I was really going to mention them. As we'll get into them a little bit later. I think in terms of guys we're excited to see, but the Leeds fans, from what I've seen on Twitter and seen in comps and things like that, Leeds fans seem to be taking these guys by storm, and they really seem to like what they've seen from a lot of these players, and that honestly is something in and of itself. I mean, mostly maybe it's my like averse relationship to Chelsea fans as a majority or their relationship to Christian Pulisic, but I don't know, to see them warm and receptive to Brendan and Tyler is awesome for me, and that's been a great storyline. The other one for me has been Richie Ledesma. Ledesma's been on the score sheet a couple times, has really looked the part. Now, the interesting part of the storyline here for me is, does Richie get a transfer? It would be a loan, likely from PSV, if anything. Does he have that regular playing time in him this season? Is he valued? Is he gonna get more than if he stays at PSV? What do his minutes look like? Is he gonna crack 1,500 minutes? Probably not. That to me is a very interesting storyline. So I would say those are my two main ones right now. But without getting too far into just me saying like, oh, I'm psyched to see this guy play. I'm psyched to see this guy play. We can also throw in the Chris Richards storyline there. The fact that Crystal Palace have gone out of the way to get him. The fact that they haven't announced him yet, though, but also the fact that Patrick Vieira seems to really want to play a back three. Crystal Palace in their preseason games have played with the back three, which just makes the Crystal Palace signing of Chris Richards so much better, and it makes more sense. Not that it didn't make sense to begin with, but I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of what I got for you. And that was a long tangent, rambly tangent, but that's why we call it over the top, really.
That's what this preseason is, and I feel like I can go on one right now. I want to say a few players, and stop me if any of these players you really want to dive a little bit more into or have something to say. But James Sands and Malik Tillman with Rangers. Obviously, we've seen Tillman now debut with them. Interesting loan move, and so now we get to see him potentially playing there, and James Sands maybe gaining more of a role with Rangers, and start getting that starting job every game in and game out, getting there in January of last year. A really interesting player, Jonathan Gomez, playing for Sociedad. What kind of minutes is he going to get this year? He's with the first team in preseason right now. Played a match already for them. Looked half decent in some of their attacking plays, and just his ability on the left wing. He's playing pretty high up at times. Anything to say about him?
I just think with Jonathan Gomez, it'll be a really, really fascinating fall, summer into fall, if he starts getting not even regular playing time with Sociedad, but if he starts making regular benches, if he starts making 1 to 2 appearances, I think if within the first 5 games of the season, if Jonathan Gomez is approaching 200 minutes, I think there's gonna be a lot of talk
Get him
about.
in September. Get him in September. I mean, like I'm not necessarily totally off Bello or whatnot, but like there still is question marks there, and he could easily take that role.
Yeah, no, I think this was always going to be the year for Jonathan Gomez to take a step up. Realistically, he was only going to ever play at the level that he was at last year. I mean, Real Sociedad is a team that is challenging for top 4 in Spain pretty much year in, year out. And he was going there as an 18-year-old from, USL is a fantastic league. The USL pipeline is really, really grown over the past 3 seasons. But, him going there as an 18-year-old from a relatively unproven league, I think this was always going to be the stepping stone for Jonathan Gomez. But look, he's clearly forced himself into the conversation. If he can continue to do that, and like I said, approaching 200 minutes within the first 5 games, I think there's a real conversation to be had, both from perspectives like ours and fan perspectives, but also from an internal USSF perspective, where all right, are we going to pursue this kid? And if that's the case, then and I can't see Mexico not having those conversations either. If that's what it is, then Jonathan Gomez is rapidly going to have a decision to make, and I don't envy him at all for it, really. But
I agree. And sticking on the defensive kind of end of things, a lot of guys are back in camp and just seeing regular stuff. Reggie Cannon's back, EPB's back, George Bello's back. They've all played or been in training. Been highlighted. Different social medias. Not that that means anything. Joe Scally, like we talked about earlier, is kind of playing pretty well for Borussia Mönchengladbach in one of their friendlies. What kind of minutes does he look like? He's also that potential, he's an option there in that right back left. Our outside backs are not sold besides Jedi and Death. And I think Yedlin solely because of, experience and everything. So I think there's potentially 1 or 2 spots open there, whether he does his 3-1 or 2-2. So Joe Scally is a shout there. But sticking to the defenders and, just like going back a little bit to goalkeepers, talk about our keepers in preseason. You got Matt Turner playing a little bit for Arsenal, but obviously not going to start the season as the starter. What happens with him? You have Zach Steffen, now with Middlesbrough, officially good to go. And then you have Horvath with Luton Town, who's also playing. So we have 2 guys now who've moved, what we always talked about, 2 guys moving, potentially playing, and 1 guy going to the bench. This is exactly, we talked about it. We didn't know it was official and everything, and now it's here. Everything's set in stone. This is what it's probably going to be like coming World Cup. So,
yeah,
the goal situation. Anything to say about our defense? I just kind of went on a ramble about.
Oh, no, you're good. I mean, I think there's one question in defense that remains unanswered still, and we'll get to that in a second. But I do just want to touch on the goalkeeper situation for a second, because I don't know if you saw, they both played really well in their last respective friendlies. Zach Steffen made a great double save. It's killing me, against Marseille. They played Marseille. Zach Steffen made a great double save at one point.
Where was
Conrad, I think, was not playing, which that is also a storyline of potentially a guy that there's some concern there.
Okay.
But no, Steffen made a great double save at one point. Looked generally solid in net, looked good with his feet. And Ethan Horvath, let in a goal, but made a phenomenal save on a 1v1. Not sure. I don't recall who they played at this point. No, they played West Ham.
No, didn't Union Berlin score against Ethan Horvath? Didn't Pivok score or assist? Oh my god, crazy.
Maybe. I'm not sure. I'm remembering the game against the preseason against West Ham, where he stopped Antonio point blank.
Well, that's a good one.
on a little bit of a breakaway. Yeah, no, it was really, really, really nice save from him. And he's looked generally solid all around too. And we know this about Horvath too, that he's looked solid. Um, and that Ethan Horvath was, when he played, one of the top keepers in the championship last season. So, I mean, look, the championship he's proven that's his level, and I think it's going to be really interesting. Zach Steffen's potentially the more interesting storyline, right? To really see what do we have here with the guy who is, I think at this point, de facto our starter. Maybe I'm really not sure. It's still a huge question mark going into the World Cup, but Zach Steffen has had more of the starts, was the starter until it kind of got taken from him. So we'll see. And we get to really see what kind of keeper Zach Steffen is week in, week out this season for a good Middlesbrough side. And that'll be fun to watch.
Did you see what Greg Berhalter said about Zach Steffen year one at Man City? Like he said that he clearly saw an improvement in Zach Steffen after that first year and throughout that first year. It makes me think like, maybe at a certain point then the limited game time was kind of maybe catching up to him. Is how maybe I'm thinking about that. And so Matt Turner in this situation, coming into November, it won't have been that long. He might play
right.
He might play 2 or 3 games. So interesting to see how this goalkeeper situation goes because Matt Turner, could get a few games and really improve potentially. So,
well, and I think to say too that like, I agree with Greg Berhalter on that one too. I mean, like Zach Steffen is a better keeper now than he was at Columbus. Absolutely. Matt Turner will be a better keeper overall. Even if he sits on the bench and even if he basically has the exact same situation as Zach Steffen over the next 2-3 seasons, he'll be a better keeper for sure. I think the issue when you talk about keepers is their day in, day out match readiness. It's so keepers make mistakes. And when keepers make mistakes, the reason that like keeper mistakes are highlighted more is because your mistake leads directly to a goal. So to be able to shake that off, you really need to get right back out there and play again. And so it's tough for a lot of keepers to, if you make a mistake, to have to then wait 5-6 days or 5-6 games for your next opportunity. And I think that's what you see happen with Steffen. It's a confidence thing. I hope anyway that it's a confidence thing more than a talent thing, and it's a game readiness thing. And so that's why it's like, yeah, these guys are going to be better keepers. And yes, Zach Steffen is a better keeper now than he was at Columbus. But the match sharpness is to me so important for goalkeepers more than anything else.
100%. And so, yeah, that's enough on the goalkeepers, but it's
let's go back to the center backs, though. The one that we didn't talk about, it was a looming question mark right now. John Anthony Brooks.
Sticking with the defense, huh?
Well, it's important to talk about because John Brooks does not have a team at the very moment.
Does it really matter? He's not coming.
It matters, Sumer. It matters. He's still our boy.
I'm kidding. No, it does matter 100%. Yeah, but people were talking about how it was a lot of like his salary demands, agent demands, and just wages and whatnot. People are still confident that it'll get done. Where? I don't know, but there still has to be a question mark whether those statements are made. You're right, and because now you're just giving Greg, more fuel to the fire as to a potential reason not to ever call you up. You need to get into a team. You need to be playing maybe a certain way for him to, to really call you up. And you're not doing that, or at least you haven't done it yet. So what are you going to do, John Brooks? You need to find a club. I'm not saying it's all his fault. I'm just saying, for his potential chances for November, he does really need to find a club. Don't want him to do it too late to the point where it really affects his playing time and whatnot. Would have liked to have seen a strong, good move. Maybe even I would have loved to have seen a pre-contract agreement, at the end of last season when you knew you were leaving Wolfsburg.
Right.
Really late,
And I think that part is maybe the disappointing part because we knew this was going to happen relatively early on. I get it from a John Brooks perspective and from an agent perspective that look, the longer you hold, and this is assuming that there are offers, right? And I'm going to assume that there are offers and that there are teams in talks with because John Anthony Brooks is a top center back, one of the top center backs in a top 5 league in the world, right? He had the most minutes played of any American in a top 5 league last year. To say that John Brooks isn't, you can have the argument all you want all day based on, tactics and everything like that to say, is John Brooks a USMNT quality player? I'm going to say yes. Others might say no, whatever. It's a futile argument. But the argument to say, if anybody is making the argument that John Brooks is not a top 5 league quality player in the world, That's absurd. The numbers tell you otherwise. So
Yeah.
my guess is that there are offers on the table. And from John Brooks's perspective, I get it. You're waiting it out. You're trying to see the best contract, the best situation you can get. But yeah, I agree with you that if you want to get yourself in contention, potentially for Qatar, you don't want to give USSF, you don't want to give Greg, you don't want to give his staff any other reason to not call you in. And not participating in a full preseason, taking longer to bet into a new club, I have a feeling that that could be used as ammunition. So it's concerning a little bit, but I also have faith in John Brooks. John Brooks is a consummate professional. I have faith that this will get done at some point too. So
Yeah, agreed. So I'm just hopeful that it works out for him. I love him very much and want him to succeed and want him to be, have a chance in November. So excited to see where that goes. Again, I'm just thinking more defenders. I don't know. Do you consider this player a defender, Paredes? There's been some good playing moments of his, but he's been playing really high up the field. So I just want to know if you considered him a defender, really, before I actually dived in.
it'll be fascinating. I mean, look, it'll be weird to see how Wolfsburg uses him this year, if at all.
Because also a left wing back, left back,
Right.
where there's a gap behind Jeddah, just thinking as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think he could play as a defender in a lot of systems. Yeah. Does it look like Wolfsburg is going to use him like that at this point? Probably not, but he's been good. 2 goals and 2 assists in preseason or something like that. I don't know. He had one game where he had against like a 5th division side. So take out the grain of salt. But still, I mean, look, to see him getting on the score sheet is great. Get the confidence flowing and then all that kind of stuff. But
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see. And I think, look, and maybe this is a good segue into guys who we think may have a little bit of a breakout season. I think Kevin Paredes, certainly makes that list. He has the skill set. I know the Wolfsburg staff, from what they've said, anyways, and pressers and things like that, seem to rate him very highly. And John Brooks, while he was there, was a very good mentor for Kevin. Kevin came out and said that himself. So I think if you're talking about guys potentially primed to have a breakout year, Kevin Paredes might be up there.
Yeah, I agree. He's definitely someone, and I want to continue off the trend of, like you said, for him, someone who I think could have a breakout year. For me, it's so tough, and I want to jump to the striker position because there's a few guys there that I really do think could break out this year, or would just love to see breakout. One being Pepe. Now he's back, and I just really think about him as someone who could break out, having that rest. Back in preseason with Augsburg. Already scoring once, right? Didn't he score in a game once? I'm pretty sure. Just didn't they also sell their striker? Pretty sure they sold a striker as well, opening up space, minutes for him. This guy was taking a minute to his, I forget his name. So really could potentially see Pepe get the starting job or lots of minutes, and hopefully want to see something in the Bundesliga because he's someone who's not 100% on the plane yet. Could really see something big from him.
No, I completely agree. And I think that goes for all of our strikers in Europe, I think. And I'm going to say this for Pepe specifically, but it also applies now that I'm thinking about it to Daryl Dike, to Josh Sargent. He will get a full preseason with his team, with Augsburg. And that is something that is so invaluable to players. And it's something we often overlook, right? Pepe came in last season in January. Dike came in last season in January, I believe, to West Brom. Josh Sargent came in halfway through last summer's transfer window. Towards the end of it, didn't get a full preseason. So he got part of a preseason. So Josh Sargent is a little bit more nuanced. But with Dike and Pepe especially, for the first time, they're going to get a full preseason under this coaching staff to learn the tactics, to adjust more to the playing style that's not just on the fly and in practices, and you're not fighting for something in the middle of a season. You can start the season off fresh. I just think this is going to be such a good environment for those guys. Pepe especially because that Augsburg striker spot is really up for grabs. I think that they sold one of their other strikers, one of their aging strikers, and there's rumors about them bringing in another young guy. I think from the Croatian league. I could be wrong. Annoying, but I would rather see them bring in an attacking player or a winger or something like that because the main problem for Pepe last year was service. But yeah, I think Pepe especially there's a real opportunity there, and same thing with DK. But DK's got a little more competition. I'd love to hear where your thoughts are on Daryl DK, but
I'm very high on Daryl DK. Don't forget Pfalk. I also think he's someone who could value the season position with Union Berlin. that's a Bundesliga striker right there. If you're gonna rate Pepe so much in the Bundesliga, you can't. And then if Pipok's able to do something or do more, you can't not rate that. You can't not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Union Berlin is Union Berlin was a fifth place team last season in the Bundesliga. They overperformed quite a bit, and actually a lot of that was based on the defense. But so they can keep that same defense and add some fire. If Pivot can provide some much needed firepower up top, and look, I mean, he could be potentially, if everything goes to potential plan for Union Berlin, part of a team getting them back into European contention again, and also taking part in European competitions with them. So it's a great move. I'm very excited to see. That's more of an excited player, but I guess you could call it a breakout player too.
Yeah, I mean, but I want to go to your point about DK. Just already scoring for them as well. The striker position is just loaded with potential right now in all these leagues, and very excited for those players and what's to come. Where are you looking at in excitement for? And you mentioned Ledesma earlier, but in the center mid range, obviously we know we have our our guns with Weston McKennie, and I would also say even with potential excitement, Tyler Adams and stuff. But where are you looking at excitement in the center mid area position? You can go 6, 8, or 10s kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I think the safe bets in terms of guys I'm really looking to. I'm excited to see play. I'm excited to see how Tyler Adams and Brendan Aronson do at Leeds. Like I said, like I alluded to earlier, I think both of those are two guys who the Leeds fans are going to love, who are going to take some adjusting to the Premier League. But I've seen them in preseason so far. Brendan especially looks comfortable. Brendan looks more comfortable on the ball than I thought he was going to immediately. And Tyler Adams, I mean, just looks like he fits naturally in that team. And that was something I was a little bit worried about.
Stuck in there a few times, head to head with Jordan.
He is getting stuck in there, and I love it.
He knows about Ghana and USA. He said, "John Brooks, I got you."
I love it, bro. I love it, and I think Leeds are just gonna fall in love with these two guys. I really do. Tyler's impressed me a lot with his passing range in the couple clips I've seen, couple games I've seen too, which is really, really important. Into more non-traditional ones, and maybe a guy that I'm seeing is really gonna have a breakout season. Two guys to watch, both on the same team. Gianluca Busio and Tanner Tessman. It looks like right now that Gianluca Busio is going to stay with Venezia in Serie B.
Mm-hmm.
Just signed a contract extension. Hardly heard any rumors outside of USMNT circles, which is not necessarily the most reliable because we all want him to move for the most part. But look, I think Gianluca Busio is going to be a really fascinating player to watch next season. This past season posted just under 2,000 minutes played for Venezia, 29 appearances. He was an integral part of that side and was one of their best players as they inevitably got relegated. I think it makes sense that he wasn't swooped up. I don't think he was good enough to really get poached from another Serie A team. But look, there's no reason to think that he won't play just as an integral part in that team on the way back up to hopefully to Serie A. And I'm really, really excited to watch Gianluca Busio play. And Tanner Tessman, too, I think could really blossom into a 6 in that system. His defensive metrics were just on par with his last season at FC Dallas as well when he got transferred to Venezia. I mean, he's just as good of a defender as ever, and he's only getting stronger and smarter. And I think really Tanner Tessman could be a breakout player this season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very high on both those guys. I think Busio has more of a chance to maybe do something for November. Tessman, just love him because I saw Dabo Sweeney at the January friendly in Orlando in 2021, and Dabo Sweeney was there for Tanner. That's pretty sure that's his godson because he went to Clemson. So that was a cool moment. Got a photo with Dabo Sweeney at Exploria Stadium. But continuing on that trend, I want to say one player who I'm excited for and one player who I want to see break out this year at the center mid position, that area. One being, as you mentioned, Ledesma. What can he do this year? What is his impact? You talked about him earlier, but I just wanted to also say how excited I am for him. But another being Luca de la Torre, going to La Liga now, stepping up from Eredivisie. What is his impact going to be with Celta Vigo? How good can this player get? Is he just somebody who was really good in Eredivisie but might not be able to have technical ability for La Liga and whatnot? I don't know. People question, how good can Luca be? What's going to be tough? I feel like tested here a little bit. Still young, but really excited to see what we could potentially get from him in La Liga. I mean, La Liga is interesting in its own, and I also just want to shout out Yunus Musa. Luka Del Torre is who I think could really break out in La Liga, and Yunus Musa, who I'm just so excited for to see expand his role more this year, it looks like, in preseason at least.
I would go so far as to say that Yunus Musa could have a breakout season too.
Even more than he's already had. He's already had
Yeah.
appearances for Valencia, which is just crazy to think about. So, yeah.
But the reason I say that too is because, and here's potentially a storyline from preseason too, Gennaro Gattuso has been playing Yunus Musa centrally.
Yeah,
which
that's
is
fine.
Not where he played last season for Valencia. He played on the right wing a lot. And I really, 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 really like this move from Gattuso to play him centrally. I do have questions about Gattuso as a manager, but
he could be a dog in the midfield, bro, just for you. Like Weston, bro. Like just a dog.
Imagine what he's gonna learn from Gattuso, bro.
Weston can't do as much, I feel like, as Yunus, where he just like glides away from people and just runs and just leaves people in the dust. It's awesome.
Imagine what he's gonna learn from a midfield just maestro. Although to call it Gattuso a maestro is a bit aggressive, but do you imagine what he's gonna learn defensively to complement his already like silky ball skills from Gattuso?
Yeah, the La Liga is going to be interesting. The movement of Americans and the increase in Americans in these leagues is just making these leagues even more exciting for me personally. It's just crazy to think about. I'm so much more interested in La Liga. You got Dest, you got Celta Vigo, you got Barca, Celta Vigo, you got Valencia. There's a few other players in that, I believe, somewhere else there. Maviasca with their last year. Just so many interesting players in all these leagues makes it even more fun to watch. But yeah, those two guys, Musa could have a breakout year too.
I'll stay in La Liga for a question for you. What are your thoughts on Serginho Dest this year?
I mean, he could quote unquote have a breakout season. I wouldn't say he's broke out just yet. Dani Alves is gone now, so like no more hiding behind that for random stupid games that you shouldn't be. Could he be the Barca right back for this team that actually does something good? Because like they're with Lewandowski up top, this team could be good, right? This team could be really, really good. And back to what we know, just not Messi and what we all thought could happen. Could an American right back be a part of that? So I'm very excited.
Yeah, no, I absolutely think so. I mean, look, I'm going to pull up some Dest stats for you over this past season because, look, he was a great performer for them this past season. Maybe didn't get the minutes that we had hoped with the inclusion of Dani Alves, and I think Xavi really leaning on Dani Alves to help figure out the system a little bit. Xavi has come out and said multiple times that Dest is a project. Dest is part of the project. But look, in terms of goal creating, shot creating actions, Dest had arguably his best career season. Like averaged a goal creating action, averaged just under 2.2 goal creating actions per 90, which is pretty good for an outside back, obviously, of Dest caliber, which isn't necessarily the whip balls in, but is more of that backboard. Is a technical player is going to drift into midfield and everything like that. 3 goal creating actions last year, 2.32 shot creating actions per 90, which is over, I think, let me look at this real quick. Yeah, over half a shot creating action better than his best season. So, like, look, I think Dest could be a very important player for Barcelona this next season. And to think that he's still, at this point, I think only 21 is scary. And I really just, I think Serginho Dest, we noticed for the U.S. how much we missed him when he's not in the side. And I think he's going to be an important player both for the U.S. this coming year and for Barcelona as well. I'm really excited for that.
He'll always be an important player for the U.S. It's just going to be a question of like how good is his club career going to be? He's at Barcelona right now, but there's always the chance that we talk about this 2-3 years from now, and he's just been like phased out and never actually found like that footing that we always wanted him to, and leaves Barca, goes somewhere else, and probably succeeds somewhere else, just maybe not Barca. Or we could talk about 2-3 years from now that this guy starts every single game. This guy's their best right back and Barca's back. So just like you talked about, just what level can he be for Barcelona? Because we know what he provides to the U.S. Just want to see how successful his club career is. Yeah. Anyone else in the La Liga?
Not in La Liga that I'm really thinking about. That's super coming to mind. I mean, obviously Jonathan Gomez is going to be interesting to watch, like we talked about. But
yeah.
No, all right. So I'll ask you then. Any other players that you think are potentially primed for a breakout? in Europe, meaning like, guys who didn't really do much last season, but could really just flame onto the scene this season?
One being, well, let's see what Sargent does. We forgot to mention him in the striker pool, but we all talked about how him going down to Norwich, playing preseason games, and then getting into it was going to be amazing. So, how good is it going to be for him?
Sargent's an interesting one. Sorry, I'll jump in real quick on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just because I want to say that like I think being on a team that gets him more service, or not being on a team, being in a league where the team that he's on is going to get him more service in Norwich. Because there's no reason to think that Norwich are not going to dominate the championship like they have been.
Yeah.
When they're down there. So being on that team is going to be phenomenal for him. Josh Sargent has statistically, especially for the past 2 seasons, been a very good player on a bad team. He was the joint top goal scorer his last season at Werder Bremen. Or no, sorry, he was not the joint second top goal scorer, if that makes sense. And the joint top goal creator between goals and assists at Werder Bremen his last season. And then this past season at Norwich, he was the second top goal scorer and the out and out top goal contributor.
Yeah.
So like he's a good player for the teams that he's on. And he's clearly very valued. And so to think that he's going to be getting into more positions to provide and score goals this next season is really, really exciting.
Yeah. And how good is he going to be for Norwich in the championship? We got a few championship players there. We just got a bunch of strikers, all question marks. Going up to the Prem, I would love to hear your thoughts. It's not too important. He'll be with the team no matter what. But how are you feeling about Christian Pulisic? Obviously you're the more non-biased fan potentially. How are you about Christian Pulisic and Chelsea?
It'll be interesting, man. I don't, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this too. I don't hate him being at Chelsea right now. I really don't. The issue just at this point being that Chelsea have a surplus of wingers. You'd know more than I am.
Yeah.
You more know than I would if Ziyech is potentially going to leave. I know those have been the rumors that Ziyech is on his way out the door. He seems to be the least wanted of the wingers by Tuchel. But
Werner as well.
And Werner, yeah, exactly. So we'll see what happens with that. I mean, there's not going to be any shortage of playing time for Pulisic. I've also heard a lot of rumors that Chelsea are going to potentially revert to a back four this season, which from a non-biased standpoint, I think is great for them. I don't think, here's a side tangent on my tactical knowledge, Sumer. I don't think you can win the Premier League with a back three. I think you have to use a back four to win the Premier League. But that's just a whole conversation for a different day that we can have. But so look, all that is to say that there's opportunities for Christian Pulisic to get into the side. And we know that at a top level side like Chelsea, he's going to have to fight day in, day out. I mean, that's what it takes to play at a top level club. You don't get gifted opportunities. You don't get gifted minutes. So he started preseason well. If he's valued by Tuchel, as Tuchel seems to say in pressers, then there's no reason to think that he won't have another good season, especially if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, please stay healthy. I will say there has been a Premier League team that's won with a back three, though. So we'll say that.
I think in the modern game right now, in the Pep Klopp era, I don't think you can.
It's going to be Pep Klopp Tuchel soon, right? So calm down. Staying in the Prem, though, you see Fulham. They're back, baby. All right. We got Jedi back there just whipping out some crazy, crazy magic tricks. You saw that, bro?
I did see that. Fulham are back, which means Tim Ream is back on the bench. It's so weird what they do.
A cool photo of I'll just say cool because I don't know how I want to describe it, but of Tim Ream running on the beach. It was the entire Fulham team, but Tim Ream was in the front, right, and was looking specifically good.
I love Tim Ream, bro. Not necessarily as a US MNT player, but I love Tim Ream just as a dude.
It was like a Baywatch photo.
Tim Ream is just a vibe.
Running shirtless on the beach in probably Mallorca, Spain at sunset. And, it's just a nice photo they posted of and Jedi was right in the front too.
Tim Ream is a vibe, bro.
I'm just saying Fulham, Jedi now. I'm excited to see what this is. I mean, he's our left back, but, the Prem is just going to be even more fun with a player like him. And I'm sure Tim Ream's going to get some games. Well, Actually, why should I say that? I mean, he's just there for when they go down. But like, he's gonna get games. Let's say we're gonna watch a game on a Saturday and be like, Tim Ream's playing against Manchester United. That will happen.
I'm here for it, man. I am so here to watch Tim Ream pocket Marcus Rashford. So here for it. But yeah, no, Fulham are going to be a fascinating team to watch. Look, I mean, the question mark for Fulham is are they going to stay up? And that's more based on precedent more than anything. You know, the fact that they've been this yo-yo team. I think, look, Fulham are potentially more fascinating this season because they've spent, at least in my book, they've spent more smartly. That's not the way that is said, is it? They've spent smarter. Clearly, I'm not more smartly. No, they've
more actually smart.
More smartish. No, they've spent smarter in the transfer market on players this season. I think the grabbing of Nico Williams from Liverpool is great for them. Oh wait, no, he didn't go there. Never mind. He went to Nottingham. Well, but either way, they've spent smarter in the players that they've got and not dropped £100,000 or £100 million on random players like they did last time. So yeah, Jedi is going to be a part of that, and I would love to see him get 5 assists.
Yeah, I really want to see Jedi perform well. You know, can Fulham stay up? Can he be a part of the team that carries this team up? They had like so many players on loan. I felt like they came up last time. Remember, they had like Areola, they had like Oleina. I felt like they had like 4 or 5 players in the starting lineup who were just on loan. And it's not, that can't, you know, it doesn't hurt, but like it just seems like weird that that's the case. Whereas I feel like now they've purchased players and they haven't been outrageous prices either. So
yeah, exactly.
Good for Fulham.
Let's see. I'm trying to think of anybody else potentially excited to watch.
I mean, I don't know what kind of impact, talk about PSV, I don't know what kind of impact Dante Sealy's going to have at all, if anything. You know, what kind of, does he play at all? Cole Bassett in the Eredivisie, you know, is an interesting player, really, really potentially getting some more minutes for Feyenoord. Didn't he wear the, I must be tripping. He did not wear the captain's armband, did he? I'm tripping, right?
I don't think so. But speaking of a player who did wear something important, Taylor Booth is going to wear the number 10, confirmed for FC Utrecht next season. Could be a little fun. Could be a little fun player to watch. Not for 2022.
Where's the what streaming platform is the Eredivisie on? That's ESPN Plus, right? Pretty sure.
I have no. Wait, maybe.
It is, bro. It is.
I think it is. Yeah.
FC Utrecht. I'll be watching Feyenoord. I'll be watching PSV and Young PSV too. And don't forget, where's that guy like Kick Pierre?
Kick Pierre. That's yeah, no, actually, yeah, that'll be on that too. Dude, ESPN Plus it's kind of popping off. We're losing MLS next season, but it's still going to be quite a bit to watch from a USMNT perspective. So,
are you an ESPN Plus fanboy? You said we're like you're.
No, I'll still keep it. Again, the lack of MLS is going to be a bit. Now I gotta buy Apple. Now I gotta buy Apple, but
if you become a season ticket member of an MLS team, you get Apple streaming for all MLS games free.
Do you really?
Yes.
Is that for all clubs?
Every club. Every account will get one login. I mean, maybe I shouldn't be saying this. It's not 100%, but that's how we're selling 23 tickets, and you know, that's how we're describing it.
That's pretty cool. I like that. Enough free advertising for Apple though, and for MLS. I don't get paid enough for that. One guy that I actually think is an interesting shot to mention as we're wrapping up here, more of a couple. We get into a couple of little spooky players potentially. John Tompkinson, Norwich center back, has been getting some shouts in preseason for Norwich this season. It's an aging back line in Norwich. Do you think he's going to get any playing time?
I don't know. He's playing these preseason games. We're probably just till these guys come back. I don't even know what their center back position really looks like.
Grant Hanley, bro.
Yeah. Bro, he was a player who like played week in and week out for Norwich too last year. So, and I don't know why he never played a game with him last year. I don't know why you don't just give the guy his debut when you're already crap in the bed. I don't understand it. Like, give him the debut.
Especially after they were relegated.
Been relegated for 6 weeks now.
Yeah.
lose the ego. I'm just kidding. Whatever. But I really like to see that. And now he's down there in championships. So this should be perfect time. Put him in. Let's see what he can do. I don't know if it'll be straight away, but interesting player to look at for sure with Norwich.
For sure. Alex Mendez and Alejandro Alvarado Jr., also two to watch from Vizela in Portugal. Not necessarily of the spooky variety, but both got minutes last year for Vizela. Mendez more so than Alvarado, obviously. But Alvarado just really shown out in the U.S. in the U20s. Could play a huge part not a huge part, but could certainly play a more impactful part for them next season, as they did stay up in the top division in Portugal. And Alex Mendez too. I think his game has grown a lot and could really be pushing as an outside chance for 2022 if he balls out and potentially gets an invite to a camp. Not saying it's guaranteed, but I think he's a player who is on the radar. I don't know how big Greg's radar is right now. I think Greg would be foolish to have his radar anything other than wide open for most positions at the moment. But
yeah, agreed. There's a few guys in Belgium, that we didn't talk about with Mark McKenzie, Brian Reynolds, and then also Kyle Duncan and Griffin Yao. But Mark McKenzie is not like totally far off, depending on the result. He's been back with Genk. He didn't play though, I don't believe, right? He didn't play in the Belgian sub in one of their most recent matches. It might have been the Belgian Super Cup final against.
I don't believe he played that. Yes,
Bruges. So,
but I also don't know if he was with the squad at that point. Okay.
Well, I know he's back with the team. I'll say that he's back with the team, and excited to see what that holds. But it hasn't been the best for him. There's just been so many ups and downs, and not all due to him, and not all due to things that he could have done and helped with. But here's a preseason here. Here's a new season. What can you do here? Because Genk is a great starting point for some players.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else you're really excited to see? I think we've touched on most of our guys, but if there's anybody else you want to bring up, go for it now, or else we gotta wrap it up here.
I think that I will say there's so much to talk about. I could keep going probably if I gave myself to think. But there's just so many interesting points about what the season as a whole. We're like 9-10 days away. I'm so excited to see hopefully Reina fit and healthy. I'm so excited to see Richards hopefully with his new team. He's not someone we can talk about too much besides speculation. There is still conversations about Conrad. What is happening there? Would love to see him back with Marseille playing well. So we were able to talk about so much and still didn't mention some of these guys.
Right.
And just excited to see this entire season. I always the scuffed playbill. They put that photo out of just everyone playing. It's just like they're eventually not going to be able to do it on one tweet,
which I love. And we're getting to that point, and it's just to see the game continuously growing is phenomenal, and to see these guys really getting hopefully more in action with their clubs is really all you can ask. I think when you look at it objectively, last year was a bit of a disappointing season for what it could have been for U.S. guys in Europe. In terms of everyday stat sheets and things like that, everyday playing time. Whatever that was due to injuries and a lot of that was down to that. But I think this is a season with all of our guys, all of our core, a year closer to their prime, a year more aged, a year more mature. I really think that this could be a season for U.S. guys to really ball out, and that combined with the World Cup could really be a season to put U.S. soccer on a global stage. So let's hope for that, and let's end it on that super positive note, because I think that's where we're at right now. So thank you all so much again for joining us on another episode of Over the Bar. We will hopefully be back next week with another episode. This one obviously coming out a day later than usual, but we should be back on normal schedule in no time. Probably. We don't know. We're making this up as we go along. But anyways, thank you guys so much for supporting us, for coming out and listening to us. Enjoy having you here. Don't forget to rate us on Apple Music, Spotify, wherever you're listening, and follow us on Twitter. Samir, anything else? Any closing remarks?
No, boys. Keep on watching. There's Weston McKinney on tonight or last night when you're listening to this, but watch preseason. Watch MLS. Go be passionate about soccer. See ya. Bye.